Oh, that sounds good on the face. Because you didn't have
Oh, yeah. How do we get off that?
Well, I was designing.
Right here.
I'm Carolyn Ivy Kahn, better known as Ivy these days. I'm an independent producer, longtime supporter of access in 4 states, and currently on staff at Nctv, and very much interested in this brainstorming session tonight. You're up.
I'm Gary Hines. I produce a musical comedy show called Clodhoppers.
Glasses and nose.
My wife Sandy and John are a big part of it too.
I'm Sandy, part of Claude.
Bo Peep.
Bo Peep.
Hi, I'm Judith Pruis-Mello, producer of Seniors Alive.
I'm Anthony Stewart, and I'm just a volunteer for the station.
I'm John Hose.
So I'm Fanny Shayani, and I tape City Council and Planning Commission in Grass Valley.
Let's jump to the back row and pick up these 2 people.
Hi, my name is Jade Goodman. I have been involved with community access for about a decade, and I'm just glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Gary Ware. I produce a weekly show for Comedy Bible Church. Also work at Editware, ex-GVG.
I'm Catherine Bush. I'm an independent producer and supporter of Nctv.
And I would like to interject the woman who started PEG access in this county.
Yes.
I'm Bob Gore. I'm representing FONA, the Federation of Neighborhood Associations.
I'm Cyrus Katara. I started out as a volunteer at Nctv and a member. I was recruited onto the board, so I am a board member of Nctv, one of the dark side. I'm here to represent the producers because that's really what's in my heart, and that's what I want to do moving forward, is really find a path that we can collaboratively work toward to salvage what is in essence dying in the model that exists in Nctv. So that's what I'm.
Hi, I'm Patricia Smith. I'm the co-producer of Breaking Bread.
And I'm Barbara Hager, and this is my daughter, Bianca. We're just here to support the gentleman in the back.
I'm Joe Lidwell. I'm a volunteer since the FCAT days in Grass Valley.
I'm George Rebane. I guess I'm on-camera talent. I did a couple of series with Paul Minicucci on numeracy, or better, innumeracy in the land, and the other one was on the singularity. And currently I'm one of the 5 co-hosts on Breaking Bread.
Joanne Urbane.
I'm Jerry Martin. I produce a show called Saluting New Readers, and I've been doing that for 17 years. And I was on the board of directors at FCAT many, many years ago, and I still volunteer, but mostly with that one show that I produce.
And I'm Heather McDonald. This is my husband, Roger Stevens, and we produce the Gold Country TV show.
Lynn Dominguez. I'm a programmer at Nctv, and I direct opening meetings.
Veronica Monet. I was at the Digital Media's grand opening just a few months ago, and I joined, became a member, and had fantasies of hiring Ivy to help me produce some YouTube. So if I go, I have to listen.
Dennis Kutch. I'm here as a member of the Nevada Theater Commission and the chair of their long-range planning and of our 150th anniversary celebration, which is coming up in 2015. And as most of you know, we've joined forces with KVMR for a new building that is under construction behind the theater, and they have plans for a live broadcast from the theater, not unlike like Wobegon, And we, in long-range planning, along with KVMR, are looking forward to an expanded potential for including television. So this is vitally important to our future.
I'm Eric Thome. I've been a producer and volunteer at FCAT and Nctv off and on over the last, I think, 18 years. 17.
And an executive director at FCAT.
Well, that was forced upon me. I called it station coordinator, and they thought that didn't sound fancy enough.
Ah.
I'm Rick Hartman. I'm an Nctv volunteer, computer technician, and amateur videographer.
I'm Andy Emerson. I'm a volunteer at the station.
I'm Lorraine Reich, a newly trained, going to be producer, hopefully, if the station continues. And member.
My name is Dan Haller, previously with the city of Grass Valley, and I see the station go up there, so. Very supportive.
My name is Keith Logan. I am the founder of the Northern California Biomass Utilization Task Force. I formerly was a financial planner and managed $21 million in liquid assets in Grass Valley. I recently got an MBA in sustainability, and I'm doing biomass consulting and organizing a development of an eco-village on 187 acres adjacent to Grass Valley. And I'm here at the invitation of Dan Hall.
Jack Meeks, occasional producer.
Past board member.
Past board.
Randy Hansen, I basically came here because there was free food. Also because I've been around since probably about 17 years, about the same as some of the other people here. I was on the FCAT board at one point, 14 to the farm. I worked in the station for about a year and a half as service staff, and I've been producing a news show for a few years and did some other shows.
How many daily shows have you produced?
Well, my news shows, I just did my 1497th episode.
Holy cow.
And then, I don't even know why, my music show's been going for like about 8 years, months, weekly. And then I had a mental health show that was about 7 years weekly. And I do a lot of other things out there in the community if I can. But now I'm sort of
And I'm Terry Hickman. I'm the access coordinator at Nctv, FCAT before that since 1989. And wow, just listening to all the talent that's in the room and all the people who want to help and do something is pretty inspiring. So I say welcome to you all and thank you all so very much for coming tonight. I think we have somewhat of an agenda that we're going to try to stick to tonight. There's an art walk happening downtown, and I know a lot of us would probably like to see at least part of it there tonight. So we're going to try to wrap up, what do you think, Carolyn, by, what would you say, 7:45?
Yeah.
We'll try to stick to that if we can. So you want to go over the outline, or what's your preference?
Well, first of all, I have been, Catherine wants me to stand up. You're right, Catherine, I need to stand up. I have done my fair share of venting in the privacy of my own home for the most part. And I think all of us have good reason to need and want to vent, but this is not what this evening is about. There will be moments tonight when some of us may kind of turn around and look back and bring some of that forward. Terry or I will gently remind you that we want to be looking forward. We want our best thoughts, our most creative ideas to come forth tonight. So just an FYI, there will be some management of how we proceed. I'm going to raise our welcome, and I will be the person who sort of breaks out by category the various ideas that are brought forth in terms of how any group who chooses to put in the kind of dedication and huge amounts of work to create an entity that would be suitable for taking on the PEG going forward. So that will be principally my job, and I'm going to toss the ball back to Terry.
You know, I think what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the current status of things, and if anybody has questions, please, this is a completely open forum, and so you can shout out, and George has one right now.
Yeah, somewhere in the beginning of our little session here tonight, for those of us who are not familiar, could one of you mavens up there kind of review, you know, what has happened, but more importantly, what are the minimal things required for us to go forward as an NCTV? In other words, before we start having detailed ideas, somebody who knows here's the minimum requirements, outline those for us so that we're talking about the art of the possible instead of having blue skies.
And we may be picking Cyrus's brain too, as we'll have you put your board member hat up in case we need some numbers that you might have that I don't.
Okay,
So,
Terry.
Oh, yeah,
Is that Terry?
yes,
Terry, as an outsider on NCTV, but I've been connected with it ever since the days of FCAT. Part of what's out in the public is not being sure what really is the problem that we are, if you're brainstorming, it's problem solving.
right, well, we're going to go over that a little bit
So if we're going to go over
first.
the factual,
As
where
much
we are
as
and
we
why.
know, yes,
Thanks.
that's what we're going to try to do. And so, I guess we should, I mean, does everybody know what PEG is? They're all no, okay, no. Okay, so without doing a full history lesson, PEG is Public Education and Governmental Community Access. And Catherine, you might want to be the one, when you first started FCAT, you might want to give that little brief history for them.
I believe it was in the 70s, when cable companies were coming in, there were two things that was happening. They were using the existing ways to get their cable through that we as taxpayers had already paid for or were paying for. The other was the thought, before that, there was ABC, NBC, and CBS, and now with the cable coming in, it brought a lot more of other things.
Other commercial,
yes.
viable commercial entities.
And so the thinking was that in order for them to do that, what it was going to do was to kind of destroy the community in terms of watering it down with all these outside companies and programs and all of that. So the thinking was that cable would provide to every place they were in. It would provide a facility and equipment for the public to use, and they would provide a channel for them to use. And that way it kind of evened itself out. Well, over a period of time, some of that got watered down, and I don't know what we get, and I think there's a problem with how you can spend that money. But anyway, that's the gist of it is that it's kind of like an electronic campfire here, and that's what public access is. And it's, again, to counter all of the other elements coming in with cable and the programming that cable brings. So,
yeah, and it's to avoid a monopoly, and part of it, the FCC requires that there be a non-commercial community access entity in any community where there's cable channels, big business.
Would that satisfy their requirement if just the government part of NCTV continues?
Well, if it's just the G, there's no public and educational, so could that devolve into just a G? I suppose that's a possibility.
Many communities only have a governmental access channel. Some of them only have the educational, some of them only have the public. Many of them have all three, but it is not required that all three be hooked together.
And one of the things that's important to realize is that, pardon my French, but community access is always the bastard child of the cable companies, because you have to remember they're in the business of making boo-hoo bucks. And community access is completely non-commercial in nature. We don't make them 1 red cent, so they're not apt to really worry about us. As you know, if they had their way, we would all just, slither off into the dust and would not be existing at all.
They are required to fund it though, right?
They're required to fund it. But another important piece is that for any of you who are Comcast or Suddenlink cable subscribers in this community, just like on all your utility bills, there's all those weird little charges at the end of each bill. And one of those weird little charges is the franchise fees. Those, I think it's around $3.40 per month per household right now. And we're a funny county because we're so hilly that so many people don't get, they don't have the access to cable.
About
in this
10,000
community.
people.
It's between 8,000 and 10,000 households.
How many in here are subscribers, just out of curiosity? Third?
Yeah, so all that money every month is going into the general funds of the county and then from them to the cities. And we're in a 10-year agreement. There was a huge, what would we call that? Franchise agreement that had to be established. In 2006, I think it was finalized. It was between the county, the cities, and the cable companies. It was not between Nctv and the cable companies.
Which is normal. The contract between the cable company is normally done with the government, local government entity, who then typically, when it's first starting up, puts out an RFP, that would be a request for proposals, and any number of 501c3s could apply and submit to that request for proposal, and then one of them is chosen based on a variety of criteria, depends on the community. And it is within that 501c3 that the government entity enters into a memorandum of understanding. So,
One question. The Comcast funding is to cover the cost of access to their network, or does that does not include station equipment or capital improvements? or
No, it
anything like
definitely
that?
does include that.
So is there a percentage you can put on that?
Somebody down here.
Yeah, actually, for the agreements in the area here, I think it's 35 cents a bill that goes back to public access, and those funds are restricted for capital investment only.
So those funds would go to the 501?
Yeah, we actually collect them as an agency, then we currently pass them through to the nonprofit that's running the station. But they're restricted for capital, they're not for operations.
so in other words, capital would be equipment,
Yeah.
repairs, and so forth,
Yeah,
not
so-
staff or rent.
Right, they're restricted in their use.
So
Here,
what's the
just so I-
figure then on how much the cable company fronts every year to cover the expenses?
None to the operating expense. The cable companies don't put anything to the operating. The Grass Valley puts in $12,000 a year. Nevada County puts in $15,000 a year. And in the agreement, Nevada City was zero, but they were looking at $3,000 a year.
Well, what I'm asking is how much do they get in the first place?
It's a 5% franchise fee that goes back to the agencies, and that's the cap, but it's negotiated to that for the impact of right-of-ways and those types of things, so.
Can you give me a figure of how much
No.
money that Comcast kicks up every year?
Now, you'd have to look at the total franchise, I don't recall off the top of my head with that.
I'm trying to see
You're
if
on
I
the
have
board,
it on
what
here.
is it? What is the amount from the board perspective?
Okay, hang on just a second. Okay.
What?
I asked
Yeah,
he's on the board.
I don't have that exact number in my head. It probably is in here, but you're asking the total amount that the station gets?
Well, no, I'm asking
from
how
these
much,
fees?
how much Comcast contributes for the effort.
Okay, I think I have the answer. I
Yeah,
got
what's
this.
the difference
Okay,
between-
Let me try to answer the question.
Carrie, hold
Okay.
on just a half a
Uh-huh.
second. As this gentleman stated, it's approximately 5%, comes to the government entities. Of that 5%, a fraction of that comes to run the access station for capital only, not for operating
In
expenses.
terms of dollars, what is the Comcast contribution to our access here?
Hold up, now, I think Terry can answer that.
I just got this from Lou today because I knew all these questions were gonna come up, and it's very convoluted. Eric's been around this block before with all this funding, and many of us have. It's very, very convoluted. But this is what he gave me. And this is from a report. The executive director is required every year to make an executive director's report to the two cities and the county. So this would be, if we were still in business, this would be the report, the numbers he would be giving. So what it says here is...
This is the budget for next year, 2013-14.
13-14. So this says, here is my simple overview, assuming an ED or such raises underwriting. Following year Comcast grant is $15,000 and no Suddenlink grant because they're staggered. So it says budget, revenues, restricted for capital equipment. From the county, the PEG fees is $21,000. Grass Valley PEG fees $12,000. Nevada City PEG fees $3,000. The Comcast grant is $30,000. Total restricted is $66,500. That means only for what we just mentioned, equipment primarily. Unrestricted, from the county, $15,000. From Grass Valley, $12,000. From Nevada City, $3,000. The Suddenlink grant, $9,000. Total unrestricted, $39,000. Additional unrestricted revenues, video contracts, $23,000. Membership, $2,500. Underwriting, $20,000. I think that's extremely wishful thinking. Special events, $3,000. Donations, $3,000. Total, $51,500. Unrestricted fees and grants, if any, $39,000. Additional revenues, $51,500. I have no idea where that comes from. Total unrestricted, $90,500. Then the expenses, personnel, $40,000, and ED, $40,000. That's certainly not been paid lately. An engineer, $50,000. That would be assuming a full-time engineer, which we haven't had in years. Facilities, $48,000. Total expenses of $138,000. Operations deficit. So you take the $138,000 minus a $90,500, and they come up with a negative $47,500.
I got a question.
I probably don't have an answer if it has numbers in it.
Well, when you started off, you mentioned staggered. Now, from what I understand, when the school district was in control of the process, there was an amount of monies that were sort of loaned out to somehow so that every other year the station doesn't get the money the school district gets it. So there's an offset, like $30,000 one year, then the next year is $10,000, and then it goes back to $30,000, and it's back.
Yeah, well, we're not under the school district anymore at
No,
all.
but is that been paid?
I want to clarify, because Randy's got two things scrambled together. The funds that came through the superintendent of schools office was very clear from the very get-go, and Nctv was created under their 501c3, which is called PEEF, that the monies that would be coming through the school district, superintendent of schools office rather, would diminish each year by $10,000. I think it was originally 40, then it went to 30, then it went to 20, then it went to 10, and now we're at 0 there. No more money from that. What you were also referring to is in this, what Terry just outlined, the Comcast grant of $30,000 and the Suddenlink grant of $9,000. That alternates year to year. One year you get it, and one year you don't.
I think with the Suddenlink grant, 1 year you get it and 1 year you don't. I think with the Comcast grant, 1 year you get 30 and 1 year you get 15.
Yes, I think you're right.
That's how that works.
So those are two separate issues. The monies from the superintendent of schools office is done, so that's not part of our dialogue.
Where's the unrestricted money coming from?
There is unrestricted funds that come through the county.
There's the PEG operational funds.
That's probably
Gary,
overstated. I mean, I got way overstated.
Well, I mean, that's what this is right here. And all this is going to be, I think I already sent this out at the door for you guys to look at. Let's see. The PEG operational support, this is what I think Dan was referring to, is by the county on its own behalf, $15,000 a year. Grass Valley on its own behalf, $12,000 a year. And Nevada City is supposed to be $3,000 a year. That is operations. That is for staff and rent. And that's not a lot of money.
Not rent. Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're right, operation.
And Comcast.
Yeah, about everything.
So,
Dish or DirecTV
Has nothing to
do,
do with this.
but can they, I mean, if cable Comcast came into the community and they said they have to give a public access, I'm just curious, why doesn't Dish or
Those are
DirecTV?
satellite.
Oh, they're satellites, they're not
They're not
cable.
coming from
Okay.
cable.
and so what's important to know is that this franchise agreement was a long and hard fought for agreement to get monies at all. And the superintendent of schools at that time, Terry McAteer, and representatives from the county and the cities worked with the cable companies for about, I'd say, 1.5 to 2 years. With a media lawyer, Sue Buskey, and the Buskey Group out of Sacramento. They're very well-known media attorneys. And they did public outreach, there was surveys, there were meetings galore, there was all sorts of involvement. And finally, the dollar amounts were agreed to after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and that is a 10-year contract.
Which runs out in 2016.
Correct. Correct. So that's getting ready to sundown. And with all the changes in 10 years of how people get their media, everybody doesn't watch their, big 24-inch anymore. It's a big 60-inch, or it's, this, or your iPad. And things are digital, and things are in HD, and things are in 3D. And things are very different. So many communities are feeling that many stations have already closed. And many communities are feeling that things as we know it may not be around at all in the future. At the end of this contract period, we really don't know what's going to happen.
I have a question.
Also be worth mentioning that I think we are the last channel and the last county in the entire state that hasn't moved from doing our own franchise model to the state control.
We have to wait till we come out.
We have to wait until our contract.
And that's what happened 6 months after this agreement went through, that they spent so long arranging this whole statewide franchise agreement came out, and everyone else jumped on board with that. So
And
we were
have
kind of
been
left
told.
out in the cold.
Yeah, we were in this 10-year contract. And when I say we, but again, it's not we. We are the beneficiaries, but we are not the ones making the rules. The cities, the county, and the cable company.
I have a question about the.
Yeah, Pam won.
I'm sorry, I came in late.
And this is Pam Norman, another producer for Pet's Sake.
I'm wondering if the board of directors, anybody on the board is here. I came in late. I'm really sorry. So there's one person that's a board.
I am, but I'm not really here representing the board. I'm interested in being a producer and moving forward with things, and so, but I can answer certain questions and so on, but I'm just saying I'm not here necessarily
We don't want to put Cyrus on the spot.
as a representative to defend the board's
No,
decisions.
but I, for some, this is popping in my head is,
Sure.
why was this decision made? I mean, ultimately.
Financial
It's
failure
financial.
is imminent.
Okay,
Like, we're in the red now.
okay, my
By the end of the
question
year, it's
two is, whose responsibility is to support the public and the educational portion of the station? Whose responsibility is it? And I know you've gone over some fees that are coming in, some of these are coming in, but ultimately, what is the,
Well, I'll say it this way. She talked about PEG earlier being public, educational, and governmental community access. And so the government is going to go forward. Of course, they're going to absorb whatever technology they need because they have an interest in transparency in all their meetings, and they want all their stuff videotaped so that the public has access to all that. The public part, that's us. You know, I mean,
Right, I know, yeah.
the education is the school districts and so on. Do they have an interest in using the community access system for that? And so it's kind of divided up that way. The education districts and so on, if they want it, if it matters to them, they need to come in and take control in some way.
If there was some sort of campaign, let's say to hit up some businesses in town, I mean, maybe I'm in a dream world, to get their name over the air, you know, non-commercial looking, and have them help support the station. Is that something that anybody would consider? I mean, it just seems like there's businesses out there that are on the station, but the monies are not going directly to the station. They're going
And
to
Pam, what
other
we're gonna
places.
do, because you came in late, we're gonna go around and talk a little bit about the current status, then we're gonna brainstorm some ideas to keep things going and, you know,
Moving forward.
Let's hold those kind of comments. Tony?
Gary, I have a
Sure,
question.
hang on just one second, let's go to Tony, and then we'll come back to you, and then we'll go back to
Thank you.
Michelle.
We've just recently done this huge move, and basically the station was unavailable for almost a year, I believe. And we moved from the Imaginarium over to the new campus here. And I'm wondering if the capital costs, or actually the operational costs, are higher as a result of that move. I'm wondering about the capital investment that was made to finance the move. We made reference to our franchise agreement running out in 2016. When was the move to the new campus formulated and put forward, and when did we all decide to go there? And were the financial figures at the time appropriate to that kind of capital improvement? I don't see them. And I'm just kind of wondering why we got tied into this contract now. My understanding are just looking at the rental fees on our facility at $36,000 with only a $30,000 window for the majority of our budget. That doesn't seem to work for me. I just don't understand how we could have got there.
You're not the only one.
I'm sure.
I would like to interject here, and just for those people who came in a little bit late, remind everybody that we're not gonna be doing the looking back and the finger pointing. We could all do a lot of
No, I'm trying to find out about the finances.
I
That's what I'm
understand,
looking at.
and, you know, in the interest of answering your question, everybody in this room, plus a whole lot of other people, know that that was a really bad decision. But we're not gonna parse that out, Tony, because it's not gonna help us to move
Well, I think if
forward.
we need to come up with an organizational or a business model, we do kind of have to look at it.
We
needs to be
do, but not at this
established.
meeting.
It needs-
That's at another, perhaps, session.
I think it just needs to be established, though. I mean, that is the thing that is unsustainable. You know, it's not only the $36,000 a year for the rent, it's $12,000 a year for the Comcast internet connection. So together, what is that? $54,000 a year. The rent was free at the Armory, right?
No.
Well, it was a couple hundred.
No, it was almost a push.
It was almost.
It was almost a push. I can't tell you exactly how much it was, but it wasn't that different than what it is now because we pay utilities there.
That's not my understanding of that.
All right, so let's.
Could I just say
Yeah.
that the move from the Imaginarium was not,
Conversation at a time.
it was a forced move by whoever owns the building.
The Army.
That wasn't a choice.
Well, then we could have had a choice, but we're not going to go into the history of that. Well, there's always a choice. Whatever you're doing,
Couldn't stay there, but we
whenever.
could have gone somewhere else.
We could have argued the point or done something else, but we'll go somewhere else.
So let me clarify just for a minute for you guys, and well, I haven't forgotten you. When we were at the Armory, we moved in there in April of 2004. That building, if you don't know, had many, many problems. The last few months that we were there, the roof was leaking so badly on top of our rack, which was our entire push-out system, that we were spreading garbage bags over it.
And pointing them to buckets.
Right, I mean, it was very bad. The state of California, who controls the Armory over there, wanted us to pay for a $60,000 new roof. They wouldn't do anything. So we had to move. Our former executive director had been in talks with the fellow who was the manager at the Grass Valley Group campus where we are now. Many, many, many promises were made on all the wonderful equipment we were going to be getting, all the fabulous help the Grass Valley Group was going to be to us in every aspect of media push-out. after they had signed the contracts, after we had hired a contractor, that gentleman, as happens at Grass Valley Group, was fired overnight. We were holding the bag at that point in time. Should the board at that time, that existing board, have backed out, it was a strong possibility they should have done that. They already had sunk some money into it though. So then, was somebody going to sue somebody? Was Nctv and the DMC going to sue Grass Valley Group? I mean, they made a fatal decision to move forward way, way, way over budget. And so we were in trouble going into that building. And things should and could have been done differently, yes.
In the value of the group coherence and the remaining 55 minutes, I'd like to motion that the agenda for the meeting be written on the board, because I don't know what it is, and that might help us all to stay on focus.
Okay, Carolyn can do that. And while she's doing that, let me just go over just the little notes. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yes, I've got two questions, which in my mind are vital. Cyrus, is your name? Yes. You indicated something that there was an entity, a statewide entity or plan that we were out of because we had opted for a negotiation with Comcast.
I'm going to read this.
It's just a timing issue.
Okay, I have two questions that relate to each other, but to what you're talking about. When our contract, our present contract, somebody indicated that runs out in 2017 or 16, will we be eligible to go into the state at that point? Two, why aren't Dish or Direct included since they're means of getting communication? I've had numerous people, including our own family, but we're on Dish. We don't have cable out where we are. Why are those two potential sources of money always perpetually excluded? And why aren't we programmed on one of their channels? So really the two come together and say, wait a minute, it sounds like in 2 years or 3 years, we've got a potential buy-in to a source of funding.
And not only that, there's a lot of PEG stations that have already made that change because of a thing that happened called DIVCA, which is really more in the last 5 years.
So my questions are, I'm posing them, Terry, trying to move away from looking at the histrionics of this thing and looking as a bridge to brainstorming of what do we have out there as sources then, and not look back at the crap that we've had.
Let's keep it perspective here, because Dish and DirecTV have no franchise with the community. They're up there at 22,000 miles broadcasting and covering the earth. Anybody who buys an antenna pays them a fee, gets to receive it. They didn't get any permission to dig up streets or put in, fiber or any of that stuff. So in other words, they're out there, it's a relationship between the consumer and the company who wanted to go out there 22,000 miles, and they have no responsibility to us.
Well, they don't, but from
I mean, does that answer the question as far
It
as
does,
how they're
except
different from Comcast?
Well, somebody put pressure, not necessarily from digging up the streets, but FTC. Terry, you started out by saying FTC put the thing out there for Comcast. Isn't FTC in a position where they could assist us?
Yeah, but there's no basis, in other words. What is the leverage
to having everything
How about
on
community
demand?
involvement? How about community involvement? If one of those, if Dish or Direct, who are in direct competition with each other, if one of them did it, the other one knows.
Sure. And you can't get Dish everywhere. They're up there, but
Well, if I go in the door,
Hey, more than one person talking, nobody can hear anything.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hold any questions. We've probably covered a lot of this already, but I'm just going to go over the current status here, okay? The contracts to run a PEG station are between the cable companies and the government. As things sit, the Digital Media Center Board has opted to dissolve the nonprofit by the end of 2013. There is not enough money in the operations budget to pay the overhead at Grass Valley Group. There is not enough money to hire an executive director and an engineer, and the board feels they cannot move forward. We have heard from the county and the cities at a meeting yesterday that they are interested in keeping PEG alive in Nevada County. It appears any movement to keep PEG alive will have to come from the public. This was made absolutely crystal clear to us yesterday. The board will not participate moving forward to try to keep NCTV alive. That was also made crystal clear to us. They are done, finished. They're barely interested in possibly having some discussion with any new people. They are just done. And I've been told this many times.
Will they resign?
The government, let me finish. The government partners are looking for viable, sustainable plans to run a PEG station. The time required to put together a complete business plan is very, and I can only stress, very short. Any potential prospective board needs to have a viable outline, a preliminary prospective budget, and a proven knowledge base.
And when she says board, that's the board of some 501c3 whose charter is broad enough to accommodate the running of a PEG station.
Isn't it possible to resurrect the current nonprofit and replace that board and move forward?
They're not
dissolving
interested.
it.
I didn't say it, they're interested.
No,
they're the board.
They're the
Can
board.
they not be, if they're not interested, why don't they resign and let people that are interested?
Because they have
take over?
chosen to dissolve.
Actually, there would be some financial and legal liabilities if they were to do that.
Exactly.
So basically, this is the place of
One person talking, please.
A board's primary responsibility in running a nonprofit is to not go into the red and not create debt for the business. And this board is having to look at, I don't want to go into the past, but decisions that have made that have led to this point and determine whether or not it is viable to do what you're saying, resign, let someone come in and take over. One of the main ideas behind dissolving the current nonprofit is that it will get us out of the Grass Valley Group lease. It's unlikely if that nonprofit stays alive that Grass Valley Group will ever let us out of that. And the $36,000 a year will be carried over to, whatever happens next. So the idea of dissolving that nonprofit, that's primarily the reason, is to get out of that debt.
Well, I understand that, but didn't it cost an awful lot of money to move?
Wait, one at a time, please.
Didn't it cost a lot of money to move to where you are now with the build out and all of that? That money's already spent and used and invested. It seems like it would make more sense rather than trying to move again and incur those expenses all over again to try and make this work. And we're only talking about, what, a $6,000 a year deficit?
So two things, no, much more than that, but two things I'll say about that, or at least one thing I'll say about that. Whether an entity that's running the TV station, and hopefully a media center, I should say TV stations, is located in that building does not necessarily equate to the existing Nevada County Digital Media Center being the ones that would be presiding over whoever was in that building. That building, though, is really very, very expensive to try to stay in. There's just there's no way to come up with the amount of money. I mean, I suppose if some very wealthy people adopted us, I guess I can't say no way, but with the current budget that we have, we cannot sustain there.
I understand that, but we can't work with the current budget we have. We need to find new ways to get money to move forward, or you're not going to have anything anywhere. Is there a cheaper alternative, is what I'm asking? Is moving to another building going to be cheaper or more expensive in the long run?
I think this points to what George was talking about in terms of minimum requirements, what Cyrus has just mentioned. The financial liability is going to continue to the Grass Valley Group under the present board. If they don't dissolve the board, if their new board took over, we would be in the same boat and worse, because we'd still be contractually committed. So he's basically spelled out to us what we need to be looking at in terms of minimum requirements, in terms of action, and locating facilities or locating some kind of a workable 501 that can negotiate with the campus over there for an interim agreement or something like that if we can't find a whole new facility. But I think he's pointed out that we're under a real extreme time deadline on that.
Are you saying we're gonna go extinct anyway, when cable becomes extinct, then we're gonna have to go to state type of stuff anyway? In
There's a-
2016?
There's a statewide franchise agreement that would take over from the cities and counties franchise agreement that has some different pass-throughs.
When cable goes out because of all the new technology?
No, the cable still stays there, just the franchise agreement is different.
Oh, okay.
So what's the difference in the agreement?
I
don't know.
I haven't gone to it, read the state one.
Yeah, it's very, it's called DIFCA, you can look it up, and I don't even remember what that stands for, it's very convoluted.
Has no one renegotiated the contract under our current 501?
The rental contract?
Yeah.
Either one, rent or with Comcast.
Say again?
I'm wondering if we have tried to go back with either Comcast or with Grass Valley Group in our current position.
Seems an obvious question.
Why? Because there's a new
Because
ownership.
what Comcast is charging us for that internet, I think in good conscience, I don't think they would make us pay that. I've had better manners from them in the past. It's a $2,000 connection that essentially works half as fast as a connection coming into your house for $40. So
We're
it's
still
doing the
talking,
media center zero good. It's costing, I mean, it's just a bleeding artery.
but we're still talking about needing to hire an executive director and an engineer
We
for
don't- it's not.
$90,000.
It's not.
Not necessarily full-time, and on top of that.
I would say we've just
you
had
really
a
need an executive director.
technical committee that has refused to let anybody else in there to make any changes. All three of them should be here at this meeting right now. It's a real shame that they're not. Craig, or whoever his name is, he got to talk in the paper and give his 2 cents, but he should be here. I had technology to come to them that would just cut the cost of operating the station to zero. It can be done from a laptop at somebody's home, all the programming. The thing runs on a computer as big as this.
Andy, let me just interrupt.
That's
for-
one of the fabulous creative ideas.
Yes, these
that
are
we
the ideas we
need.
And I
Yeah.
was trying to come to those guys for 4 months. They wouldn't even let me come to the board meeting.
Well-
I had the guy who wrote the software that they use for all their switching and all their scheduling with me. I had to bring him along. We got turned away at the door of the meeting and told they were going to talk about secret stuff we were not allowed to.
Here,
He's right, but let's not.
I'd like to mention something about the minimal requirements of a station. And I think the word that is in my head is the word fun. Like my participation in FCAT was like for a year. And you know what? That funky station was fun. It was funky, but it was fun.
Yes.
I also worked at a station in a little town called Willits for a couple of years. You had to go get the key from somebody and open it up. It was in the old library, condemned library. And it had, an editing bay. It had like a couple cameras and really funky, very minimal. But we did get to broadcast on the cable and it was fun.
And I think everybody in this room, John, everybody in this room who's had any touch on production wants to bring that fun factor back.
Okay, can I just say one thing? When I was with MCAT, it was ran for 5 years on $5,000 a year. And it stayed, and was it?
I think it was 7 or 8.
Yeah, it came in little increments of 2,500 at a time.
But for all time, 7,000, it stayed open. I mean, there was a lot of this stuff going on because of differences of opinions, but it survived, and it can happen again. And Mount St. Joseph, what about St. Joseph's? Is that a place that it could go back to?
Possible.
No, I don't think we could go to, Eric's been trying to say something for a long time.
Yeah, and I would recommend that people raise their hands rather than speaking up, because we should try to talk a little orderly. But if the board is dissolving itself, and as Terry said, there's the time for a business proposal or proposals for taking over is very limited. Has the board received any proposals? Do you know?
I mean,
do you know what that period is?
That's kind of where there's like a limbo right here, because we were at the meeting yesterday with the county and, the heads of Grass Valley, Nevada City, and the superintendent, and, the school districts and so on. There really isn't anyone, people were asking, well, is the county going to allow people to submit and so on and so forth. Right now, there isn't really a centralized location where the public would go. The county would entertain it, it's just that it needs to be brought forward, and they've agreed that they will facilitate a process, but they have no authority to come in and tell a private nonprofit corporation what to do, and so they're not able to come in and mediate or judge or determine the future.
Because I had heard that the station would probably go dark at the end of this month or next month, and that the board won't actually dissolve itself until December. Is that correct, or what date are they?
To be honest, I don't know.
That
You
should
know,
be,
when that
really,
is,
that should be
and
one of the first things that's out there.
What they're talking about now is like moving committees and, you know, unwinding and how are we gonna get all that stuff out?
I would recommend
Okay, let's try to do one at a time, please.
I think the first thing
Raise your
they
hand.
should do
We've got
is
Rennie.
set up a schedule of
Let Eric finish.
what they're doing and when they're going to dissolve and then how people can approach it.
Yeah.
Because until we know that, there's not much we can do.
I would
It
say
doesn't
right,
sound like a very competent board.
I would say right now, well, again, it's, and again,
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not necessarily
mean you
here to
personally.
defend the board's decision. I'm not one of these ones she's saying that, oh, I'm done with this and to hell with it all and all of you. That's not where I'm coming from. You know, I am just as interested in all of you seeing this move forward in a new way. The decisions that have made throughout the years have led us to this point. It was what, in 2006, Lou was in the paper saying, we're going to close our doors next week. And some miracle happened. I don't know what that
Well, the
was.
franchise agreement.
Yeah, and so there have been several times when we've been at this point, you know, there's no money, what are we going to do? My only contribution would be to, you know, really look at everything that needs to happen. What actually needs to happen in terms of the equipment that we need, updating it. That's another problem. The reason they need an engineer is because this stuff is all antique technology. Okay, you know, it's kind of cobbled together, and we need someone who knows 1990s technology to keep it all running.
If we continue with that model.
Right, but
which
we
there
need
is
to-
nothing that says we need to.
No,
How do we go
there's
about
new
doing this?
technology
Bottom
now.
line, let's get to what do we need to do to go forward?
let
We
me-
don't have a lot of time,
Rennie's been wanting to say something, there's been a couple of hands up, I see a hand up back here, so Rennie, go ahead.
Well, I have a simple question. I just want to know if the Grass Valley Group is not interested to keep you in there and get the rent.
Well, I
Can't you
don't know,
renegotiate
you know,
the-
again, I'm not on the board, and I'm not privy to
But
much of
maybe
anything
somebody
that the
clever
board has
without the
done.
board should actually talk to somebody and
I
privately and
suggested
sit down
to
face to
Lou
face.
Sitzer today, I said, and I asked, would any member of the board be willing to negotiate with Grass Valley Group? Would any member of the board be willing to negotiate with the government partners to see if they could kick down a few dollars? He's not on the board either, but he indicated to me that he did not believe that any member of the existing board would have any interest whatsoever in any further negotiations, and that if a group came together, an entity came together that wanted to do those negotiations, or wanted to come up with, here's $5,000, let's keep the doors open, then that person with the $5,000 or that group with the money could come to the board and say, look, we have some money. Can you give this to the Grass Valley Group for us? But that was my understanding, that they're not going to be the ones to do it.
Yeah, and that's,
Well,
Now, we got questions over here, somebody over here, and we got George. And then we're going to brainstorm. Go ahead, George, please.
Taking a step backward just a little bit, looking at all the people who are around the tables here, everybody is interested in producing content. The gentleman down there was saying having fun. That was a big driving because of volunteers in doing this. What if we take a step backward and consider something like a MOOC? Does everybody know what a MOOC is?
No.
It is taking the world by storm, and I am surprised that here we are, television folks, nobody knows what a MOOC is.
You mean
Massively open online course. Coursera and edX are two companies that are now putting out systems that you can develop MOOCs. All the universities are going into MOOCs, presenting programs where you have a camera on there and you have on-camera talent. They happen to be lectures, you know, B-roll, what have you, comes on there. The main thing is that we're talking about producing content, and if we adopt a MOOC paradigm, then we will be distributing over the internet. Nobody told me that we have to distribute over a cable channel.
More world out there.
We cannot work with them, and this board wants to basically be an anchor until it can, you know, turn out the last, you know, the last guy out turns out the light. can we not take some time, perhaps here tonight, and talk about what does it take to put together a MOOC production outfit? And we're talking about exactly, you know, computers the size of that bag and so forth, and fantastic software that already exists, cameras that are better than what we're looking at over there, and putting out fantastic programming that is the kind that NCTV has already been doing, and we are in the process. I'm thinking about, breaking bread as being part of it. So, let's put that on as Plan B while we're still fighting the NCTV business as usual.
The classic access model is through cable dissemination.
I'm saying classic.
I know. I'm just, so we can
That's Plan A.
Andy would be the first one to tell you that if we're going to succeed, we have got to leap into the 21st century and be web delivered. Now, there's no problem with those two things working in tandem, but right now, with the financial crisis and challenge and some of these other considerations, it may not even be viable, possible, or even sane to consider continuing with an access model and the web-delivered model. So one of the brainstorming things that I think will come up tonight is going purely with a web-delivered operation, which is what you're saying.
Plan B, if we call Plan A.
So, just
cable, call it Plan B.
I did.
Okay.
One thing I just need to say is that the reason we get all these fees, remember where I said we got them from? The government.
Cable.
Cable. Our money comes from the cable companies. I'm not saying that all these things are great. I hope that we can really brainstorm our way out of things, but the money right now to pay any rent anywhere comes from the cable companies. And we're locked into that until 2016 if we're still in existence.
All right, we have 5 hands in the room.
I would just want to start with my 5 minutes.
Well, when we get into let's have a couple of hands and then we'll let
So
Randy
you
have
call
his 5 minutes. Well, let's see, Pat.
How much money do we actually need to keep the doors open?
Depends on what you're talking.
Depends on where you're at.
Well, what we have now, if we want it, we need to buy time because, like you said, there's a very small window of time to move forward. And there's a lot of big grown-up decisions that have to be made.
So about $4,000 a month minimum is what we're talking.
Yeah, and that's just
paying
renting
you
utilities.
Yeah, that's
no staff. That's
not that we get much.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when you were giving out numbers, you said you were running a
I'm just reading the chart here.
$47,500 yearly deficit.
What is this?
It comes down to basically $4,000 a month, and that's including an executive director and a paid engineer. And that's only that's $4,000 a month.
And 51,000 from some source Lou mentioned that we don't even know what it is. 51,000 income from who knows where.
Okay, we had some other hands up here.
So the way I've always understood it, the cable companies kick up all this money, and then the cities and the counties take most of it, and they give us a little bit. Is that how it works?
Correct.
So there's a big difference between how much they give us to run on and how much they get from the cable companies. So if we go out of business, are they going to lose that draw from the cable companies?
Yes, they are.
The answer is no. If the franchise fee is part of your general fund, that same money goes to pave streets, pay a cop, pay a firefighter, take your pick. It's general fund dollars that goes to the cities and counties via the franchise agreement.
So it's not designated?
It's not designated for cable, it's not, no. In the agreement, a small dollar amount was committed from the cities and counties.
The gentleman who's directly, yes, you sir, go ahead, you're next.
Okay, regarding what's been already spent in the Grass Valley Group, I referenced what recently did with Microsoft. Those are some costs that need to be written off. Microsoft wrote off $1 billion worth of investment in their laptops because they simply couldn't sell. So based on the fact that you don't have any money realistically to work with right now, it would make more sense to just write that off based on, and then go forward based on what you do have to work with right now. I very much support the idea of a cloud mobile-based technology. It's cheaper, it's better. I suggest a new structure. It releases the old board members from any potential liability and the getting out of the debt. You would also provide a fresh perspective, you have no liabilities, and it would provide an opportunity for new content direction, because there's tremendous talent here. And also, I think with new content, you could also look for some regional fundraising. There's tremendous possibility in terms of both underwriting and support if your message is relevant to your market. I don't know if that's the case, but if you do that, you'll have a possibility for raising significant money over the next 6 months to a year. In terms of business plans, I'm not volunteering, but it's what I do. And you can put one together 3 weeks if you have the people providing the right kind of data and numbers. And these numbers are make-believe.
Budgets usually are. I mean, some of these are hard numbers because it's actually what we do get from the memorandums of understandings with the various entities. So some of these are hard.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a response to a number of things that people said, but that's all history, and I think the person who actually has the best view of what we might do is Andy, and I'd like to hear from him.
Please.
For this, for what he's just said here, is the only thing that's made sense in the last 3 months. I spent 4 months trying to saying, can we not move this forward in a 3-week plan? This does not need to be a 6-week or 6-month rollout. I'm not sure why, if it's Center for Nonprofit who's coming in to try to give leadership to the group or what, but their plan is not working. It never was. There was so much hemorrhaging coming out from all these fees all the time.
Could you cut to the
Talk of a vision, give a vision. Give a vision.
We need something that's going to happen in a 3 week. This whole meeting is just, I've been to so many brainstorm meetings in the last 3 months. It makes my head spin.
That's kind of why I wanted to get one thing in. I think we have a short-term need for a smaller group that represents the stakeholders at the station, producers, volunteers, the nonprofits that use the station. All of the stakeholders have to be involved in this process. And we're not going to solve this big money thing tonight. There's too many people involved to try to even get a grip on it. But we do need to buy some time. And if the present sitting board will not negotiate with the landlord, will not negotiate with the county, will not enter into discussions because they've already decided they're pulling the plug, we need an independent group, and they don't have any ability to make decisions for the whole thing at all, but merely to intercede with these people, let them know we're in process here. And we need some time, and they have to be representative of all the people involved in the station, not just this little core group that's followed it through from time to time. It's got to be every stakeholder. And that includes the nonprofits in the community that need the station. That includes every producer in the place, and the viewers, and the volunteers in the community. They all have to be involved. There has to be at least one person to represent those groups. They've got to be able to sign a letterhead, send it off to the Grass Valley group and say, look, we're in a bind here, and we need a little time to work this out. And if the board's not going to ask them for more time, we are. And then we need to go to the county or anybody at all that we have commitments to and make that same deal. So and I believe that they will give us that time. But somebody's got to stand up and ask for it. And it can't be a small select group or anybody in any way tied into some other agenda. It's got to be about getting time for us to solve this issue.
What I'll tell you is that yesterday at a meeting that very few of us were invited to, there was 2 meetings yesterday. There was a fact-finding mission that was called by the county. There was representatives from the 2 cities, the high school district, and some of the board of directors were there. And it was billed basically as a fact-finding mission. We weren't at the first part of the meeting, but I think they really just kind of wanted to hear from the board members what the heck happened. Why is it viable? One day we have an open house in May, and wait a minute, it's in the paper, it's closing now. You know, it's like, whoa! And that was everybody's reaction.
Didn't they have a watchdog?
Steve Monahan was there, Allison Lehman was there.
Steve Monahan.
He was the one who called the meeting.
Yes, he is. Okay, so this county is Steve Monahan.
And Allison Lehman.
But he works for it.
He's under Allison.
Those are both county
No, wait a
people.
minute. Steve Monahan is under Rick Haffey.
Yes.
Steve Monahan rules the most people that the county
Right.
has. He's the biggest single
He's a big honcho.
kahuna that the county has.
Information services.
Yeah, and
More than
general
that.
services and toenail clippers and everybody comes under Steve, basically. I just want to know that Steve Monahan.
Steve Monahan called the meeting.
We know how to
Yeah.
talk to Steve.
Okay, so, yeah, so I'll finish my point here. So anyway, they had a 45-minute meeting, I think, just kind of going over with the board what the heck happened. And then several of us, I came in as staff, Gil Dominguez came in as a producer, Cheryl was there, and Ivy was there, and I think that was all of us, right? And they really just wanted to know what ideas we might have moving forward. I mean, there was really nothing, there was no explanations, there was no anything. I was struck by the fact that when I asked, gee, can we have like a steering committee or an advisory group of you people? I was told, well, gee, that would be a good idea. And nobody raised their hand, nobody stood up, nobody said, we'd love to jump on that committee. But the good news is that we did hear from Allison Lehman, who is second in command of the county today. And she truly believes that an advisory committee, a steering committee, is absolutely necessary. So I'm hoping that we can get her or some others. I'm sure we have friends in Grass Valley and Nevada City and that will jump on board, because we do need those kinds of individuals to be on a committee. And certainly any of you who want to put in the hard work to build something new.
Gary, I have a question for you. This goes back a little bit, but it ties a couple of these together. George, you indicated a kind of a plan A, plan B, so it's a dichotomous type of situation. Could there not be a multidimensional view of both coexisting? Are they mutually exclusive?
No.
I don't think we have
They need to
the
be the
bandwidth
same.
to go, yeah.
They actually need to go side by side until the TV, until the net, till the internet one is able to go, and then we can retire the TV station, ideally.
What we have right now with the county as far as Plan B is concerned, the county just recently opened, introduced, cut ribbons, went through the whole bit, a fairly enthusiastic thing called the Collaborative Technology Center at the Madeline Hill Library. Okay, that center is going to, my prediction, it is going to become obsolete very, very quickly, because it's got a whole bunch of hardware in there that's, going to become dated. Technology is accelerating tremendously right now. So, one of the things, and by the way, that's Steve Monahan is the county, that he's one of the makers of the CTC. In my little pea brain back here, I'm thinking Steve would like to see the, you're getting this down on tape here? Okay, good. Steve would like to see the CTC continue as we all. Putting together perhaps a web-delivered, cloud-delivered enterprise with the CTC could be two birds with one stone, would keep both of them alive, because it draws, the CTC is supposed to draw people from the community, including kids, who would like to learn about, video production and so forth and so on. It seems to me that might be a natural marriage that the county is already committed to, through its library and so forth, that we come to them and say, okay, we're going to lose the standard way of doing business, Plan A, because the board wants to, and all the reasons that you guys know better than I do. But Steve, how about starting now community television, the P and the E parts of it, in collaboration with the Collaborative Technology Center, and start using the new MOOC type things, using the existing systems like edX and Coursera that are out there, and what the universities are doing, and so forth and so on. So I'm saying I think there might be a chance to make 2 + 2 = 5 in here if we approach the county.
Well, that 2 + 2 did not include a traditional PEG cable-delivered mechanism, which I'm just bringing it up. What you're talking about is the new technology center and a web-based delivery mechanism.
That handles the P and the E, and if they're nice, we'll even handle the G part.
Right.
Don't you have to be a nonprofit?
But it still has to
nonprofit?
Yeah, there still has to be a memorandum of understanding between a nonprofit organization to run a public access PEG.
I
take
think
your
the
pick.
entire cost structure, though, would change enormously for this.
Are we losing our 501c, you're saying?
Yeah, the 501c3 that has currently been running the television
It's defunct, you're
station
saying, right?
is dissolving. It's
So we
going
have to
away.
start and get a whole new one real
That
quick
would
here.
be- yeah, right.
That's number one, we have to have a 501c
That is a
to
very
even
major
qualify to
point.
even get anywhere.
And also,
is a
somebody
very
has to
good point.
receive those assets, because they're not allowed to just sell those off or take them.
No, they have to, they can
Why are
transfer
we-
them
They have to be transferred to another 501c, and that's why I was suggesting a short-term interim committee setup to give us time to do the paperwork on a new 501 that absolutely does reflect the framework that's needed to pull together these two really good
Yeah, there's
ideas.
a whole lot of people meeting together and putting brains onto
Yeah.
the issue. Catherine?
Is there any 501c3s that already exist that would have in the mission statement, the wherewithal or the expanse of having public access be part of their
KVMR.
501c3?
KVMR's not interested.
Does the board have to answer to
And
us?
let me answer that. Hang on, Pam. When the old FCAT goes down, we kept that 501c3, we meaning a certain group of us. And that 501c3 is now called the farm. We changed our mission statement so that it was much broader than just running a television station. So it stands for Foothills, Arts, Resources, and Media.
Way to go.
Because of the crisis, when we, as Lynn and Carolyn and I like to call it, our firing meeting 2 weeks ago tonight, we were told that this was all going to happen fast, something was going to have to be put in place, and the county was going to take all the equipment back, or a viable 501c3 was going to step up quickly. So we pulled our board together and we thought, well, we're not sure that we want to take this on, but right now, because it's an emergency, we will put in a letter of intent to have first right of refusal, and that has been done.
Oh, yes.
So that is in there. Whether we want it or not, I don't know.
That's fine.
But at least that's been in, and other groups certainly can step up. And hopefully what's going to come out of this is some other entity is going to be formed, and we'll move forward. Pam?
Yeah, I'm a nonprofit. I have my own animal rescue, and I also included my TV show. So I don't know if that would help, but it could go under the umbrella of another nonprofit until it is established.
That is correct.
So, I did include my show because it's the educational part of what I do to save animals. So it's...
Right, Cyrus? Sorry.
I'd just like to address what George is referring to, and before I joined the board, I took on the project of converting the existing Nctv website from Drupal to WordPress, and so I spent 3 months, hundreds of hours, and my butt is still sore, building a new website for the station that was totally video-centric, very advanced, and will be able to handle video in a way that allows for people to feature their stuff, and it's just very interactive and very beautiful. And so the technology is there now, but it's not going to be used for anything at this point. And I spent a lot of time researching and
I'm not so sure.
chasing down. Well, it's because all these financial crises came up, and suddenly it became an irrelevant point. But what my point was, and the reason I was brought onto the board, was to eventually head the web committee. And because we were going to move to more of a web-centered thing and try to create something in parallel with the cable system, where we were putting out content that is available to the public on their pads and their phones and, internet, and so more internet-based. And
But that
again,
web design is a
created in parallel.
movable feast, though, isn't it?
Say again?
That web design that you created, that's a movable feast. I mean, you can put that on a thumb drive, right?
It is
the website, or
Yeah,
it's
the
basically
website. The website.
Yeah,
It exists in the cloud. It's a bunch of software.
Right.
And you got a server company out there that
Exactly.
serves it, right?
Right. And if you
It's
put
a
it on
movable
YouTube,
piece.
it's
I
free
mean,
storage.
let this part go sync with Plan A board and all that good stuff. And you take your thumb drive over here. Turn it on,
Certainly,
however.
we wouldn't want all his hard work to go by the wayside. Let's hear
Well, that's
from
what I'm
you.
saying.
Yeah, let's hear from
But
you,
that's the
and
point.
then I think we're gonna try to spend the last 20 minutes or so just getting some really good ideas down on the board, and, you know, hopefully that all of you here will be willing to step up to the plate and help us out, and keep this thing alive.
Okay, thank you. And again, my name is Keith Logan. First question, if I understand correctly, which I may not, it seems like we have to maintain, or you have to maintain this PEG thing working with cable. If you were able to have access at a very minimal cost to the existing hardware, what are the minimal operational costs, excluding labor, that it would take to satisfy the cable or PEG aspect of this operation? 5 grand, 10 grand?
I don't have any clue.
It's all based on upgrading the technology. I mean, it's what's it cost to do what the station does with modern technology, and not keep all this cobbled together stuff that's antiquated.
What I hear you asking is.
Please hold up, please, hold up. The idea is that if you want to transfer to what George was saying, and to what Andy is saying, the cloud-based technology, which makes much more sense, you don't want to invest any more technology in a cobbled-together thing. So can you exist and satisfy your minimal requirements for 5 grand or 10 grand, and then put the rest of your resources towards moving forward this much more robust and advanced platform?
Yes, it's possible.
Yes, and
That's what I need to
I
know.
think I
Thank you.
can help you with that, because this is one of the several options that I've been thinking a lot about. And that is to take the existing PEG fees, you have to be a 501c3 that steps up to the bat, okay, that's a given. Take the existing PEG fees that come for operations, never mind that capital right now. Move the existing rack, which is an antique, into a closet. Put up a desk so that 1.5 program schedulers could handle both channel set 11 and 17. And that model, just for that piece, could function within the operational fees that are currently coming. That would cover rent and paying somebody to be a program scheduler and a part-time engineer. Very, very stripped down. While a larger group of interested persons fundraise, find a facility to build out the studio, both studios, edit bays, what have you, and move forward kind of in a two-pronged way with that whole web-based, cloud-based delivery mechanism coming along the pace alongside. Because I think that this community would really rise to the occasion and respond to some fundraising if they saw that we were getting our heads out of the 18th century.
Okay. Randy is going to rip off my head and spit in my neck.
Okay.
He doesn't get his 5 minutes, and he's real close to my neck.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm getting the answer because I've been kind of waiting.
He asked if he
Spit
could,
it out, Randy.
throw something out there, so I'm
Well,
timing you. You got
basically-
5 minutes.
Thanks, I got 5 minutes. Okay, well, since I've been around the block a few times here, and I've been almost, I got almost answers for almost all these things that I came up with, but not necessarily, I'm gonna try to keep it short. First off, I have a Grass Valley Television, which I produce on the internet only. It goes through Livewire. I put, right now I have about 20 hours worth of content on there, and if I get it to 24 hours of content, then every 24 hours it just repeats itself, and I put that out there. I do that all by myself. I've done all my shows by myself. I've told the station before I could take everything that's produced there, bring it to me, I could put it in that, and I could put it out online, and it would be running online all the time. 80% of the people in this community that watch anything on public access probably get it through other things besides Comcast. Comcast has 10,000 possible places that can get that, and who knows how many of those actually subscribe to Comcast. So even though Comcast is where the money comes from, and as long as you stream to Comcast, now if you have a good quality The type of quality that's coming out in channel 11 is standard definition. So the quality, a WMV file in a computer, you can put that on a DVD and play it out on there and it looks fine. It's not high def. If people put all their content and send it to me in Dropbox, that's a way to get media to people, large files through the internet. Send me all their Dropbox stuff, we can stick it online, we can stick it all out there. It doesn't cost anything to keep everything running. When the station went down, it had a time where we took key pros and we filled the key pros with the amount of programming that just rotated. And we put that in there and put the station on hold, and then that ran. And then
It's
it
a
kept
storage
going.
device. People
So,
don't know
so it
what a
was
key pro
playing,
is.
even though we weren't actually putting new content on, it was still on the air. So there's ways to keep it on the air no matter what. You don't even have to have a building. All you have to have is a connection to the internet. And you could probably send that same stream. So I know Andy and I, if Andy and I got together and put something together, we could sit there and put the whole thing together and stream it all out to send the feed to Comcast and everything else, and with no cost at all. But in order to keep things going in the community so that it's a community public access, one thing I came up with was Meeks, the old Meeks Hardware that's right over the hill from here. It's a 12,000 square foot building. They want 50 cents a square foot. They're willing to do quarter of it, which is about $3,000 a month. It's totally vacant. They're big, giant, huge parking lot. It's centralized. It's between Grass Valley and Nevada City. If you had a denials like flea market on the weekends in there, and you took a section in there and you put 10 foot and 20 foot little things in there, and all the people around here that can't afford to go downtown and pay $1,500 a month for rent to have a store, you could have a store in there. You could pay $100 a month and go there every weekend and sell stuff. You could have a year-round garage sale thing going on there. That money would be a cash register to pay for the overhead there and maybe pay for the salaries for the people. If you took the station, which, by the way, this new station, when Jay Kusa put it together, the last person, Bill Carquest, when he put it together, he did it like most engineers do, is he put everything in there where only he knew how it plugged in. Well, that's called job security. But when Jay Kusa, when we moved it over there, Jay put it all back together again, took it out down to nothing, built it all the way back up again. But every plug is marked. Everything in there. You can go in there and unplug the entire thing in 2 days and move it anywhere you want and plug it back in. It's still there. So you don't have to be there.
What about the
What we're talking about, the office space. The only thing that we have to be concerned with if we relocate is we have to relocate somewhere where we're in the centralized internet, government internet that's connected in this community. And we have to have an outlet to it. That's why we, as a station, when we moved down there, part of the deal was that at first there was no Comcast down there. There was no internet cable down there. Comcast wanted $250,000 to run a line 2 blocks. Well, nobody was going to kick in $250,000, but we made a deal where we convinced them that, hey, with these industrial things down there, Grass Valley Group and other locations down there, you guys really need to be down there, and we convinced them to go and put it in there. So they put it in there. We didn't pay for that. We had to pay for part of it. That was part of that $60,000 we spent out. We had to pay them. But besides that,
let him go. I'll give him my 5.
Okay, that was fine. Okay, well, so anyway, so that was my little spiel.
I have a practical suggestion. One thing that people keep asking for, and everybody seems to need numbers, realistic numbers to kind of, well, we're trying to brainstorm a plan, but we need to know how much it's going to cost. How much will the state kick in when it goes to that state contract? Well, nobody knows. It's convoluted. Or how much is it going to cost on a minimal to be connected to the cable? Well, it's really hard to tell. But if one were to get a list of those stations in California that are in small communities that Comcast does business with, and called them and asked them, how much are you paying to stay connected? How much are you getting from the state contract? and then you got like 3 examples, that would be realistic numbers to communicate to people with about.
That's an excellent idea.
Duh, that's
You're
just
hired.
too easy, John.
Thanks for volunteering, John.
Good job, John.
Make things so
You
simple.
let us know when you get those numbers.
Eric, tell me.
I have 2 specific questions to 2 individuals and then 2 general questions to the whole group. When I was asking you before about whether you received any offers to take over or when exactly the board was going to resolve and so on, it was knowing a little bit about the farm offer. Has the board received any other offers besides the farm offer?
Not in my, I mean, this is all so hot off the press.
And then Randy, do you have a nonprofit of your own?
Well, I have a nonprofit called Minds in Recovery I'm the president of, but it's, the mission statement's not the right one, but I don't use it, so I'd be happy to throw it in the pot. I mean, you could change the name, make it a mission statement, and put a website together and start raising money. I mean, that's the problem that we're gonna always have, is if we don't raise money.
Can you change the mission statement and the name?
Oh, yeah, the farm did both of those. And then the 2 other questions, the 2 general questions are, would the group here like to work through the farm or some group like that? And if they would like to do that, would they like to try to maintain the existing NCTV or start completely fresh?
Seems to me the answer is the next meeting should have people from the farm present themselves and explain
Let me tell you
what
about the farm, okay? At this point in time, the farm had, we're still legal, we've paid all our taxes, but over the last year, we have gone pretty much dormant. A couple of years ago, we took over the now defunct California Arts Council, so that came under our umbrella as well. The only thing that we're really doing at this point, in the past, we've done Earth Day, we've given money to the local Mighty language class, we've given money to harp students so they can take lessons.
So you got money?
No, we don't have any money now. The only money that we have coming in right now is a state grant under that old Arts Council grant for the Poetry Out Loud program, the poetry in the high schools. Other than that, we've pretty much been dormant. When we had an emergency meeting to talk about, this problem with NCTV, the powers that be within the farm right now truly are not interested in the television station. They're interested in the media center, which is the production house, production and web-based, and not dealing with the television station. Now, I explained to them that all the money goes with the television station. So you'd have a whole bunch of equipment maybe, but no money. So certainly more discussion needs to be had. My guess, though, is that a more viable option will be creating an entirely new 501c3 nonprofit.
Could you think in terms of having farm be our fiscal agent until we're able to, like maybe for a year or
We'll try to get, I invited the other members of the farm here tonight. I don't know if they had other
How big is the
agenda
board?
items.
Yeah, carry the
4,
torch.
4 people?
all officers.
That is really essential. I'll just give really quickly, when I was executive director of a nonprofit in the Bay Area, it took us over a year to get our 501c3 approved. We didn't want to, but we had to go with a memo of understanding with another agency.
Don't put the word Tea Party in there, we'll never get it.
Or occupied?
So that was my technical question. Would the county or the municipalities accept a 501c3 applied for? Or do they actually need the certification? Because that obviously could be a 12
My
months.
understanding is that they will look at, that's why we need a steering committee and an oversight committee. My understanding just from our executive director is that they would be willing to look at an up-and-coming new 501c3 nonprofit.
And the second part of my comment is I certainly want to support George in the concept of the educational aspect, which is so incredibly exciting what MIT and Harvard are doing. In fact, all of Presidio. The second thing is taking a look, you can begin with the end in mind and take a look at who you're going to market to and who you might want to raise money from. Keeping in mind you do want to make it enjoyable for all the people who are in the process. But the Nevada County has their, what was the switchback plan has now been adopted as the Nevada County Marketing Plan. And interestingly enough, and we've all heard this story, but tourism is still their primary focus in terms of what they want to do. They want to get shoulder season visitations and they want to get multi-night stays. They also want to work on branding. And one of the things you do have here, we have is tremendous local food organizations. We have the wineries, we have art, and we have technology. So in terms of content, this may be a little bit premature, but that would be a lovely thing in terms of the content, additionally to the educational aspect, to build, because it will be addressing and talking to the desires of the powers that be that will help you get funding.
Yes.
Quick point. My suggestions about MOOC, cloud, web-based was not limited to education. It was to use that technology to produce whatever the hell you want to produce. Porn if you want.
Well, there's your money
enough
maker.
of that. You're on camera telling.
A great grandfather?
We're approaching 7:45, and our intention this evening was to wrap this meeting up and be out of here with the door locked by 8 o'clock. Has everyone here signed up, name, email for future communication, interest in helping? It really sounds like we need to have another meeting with a few key people. Certainly invite you, sir, to participate. I think you've got some really, good ideas there. Everybody here has had good ideas. We've never really quite gotten brainstorming, but I think this last little piece is really the piece that we were all hoping to get to tonight. And we're going to need to follow on with that. And one of the things that we did not discuss is an email address that we took it upon ourselves to create so that we could have one central, very objective email address to be using to communicate with, SOSNCTV@gmail.com. Catherine?
I was just going to say, perhaps you could send us out a list of categories that need to be filled, and then we can respond to whatever we think we would be most effective at.
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah, and with Gmail you can actually conference video talk.
Well, you'll have to teach us how to do that.
You
We're only
can.
media
That's it.
types.
Just hit the camera and it says invite friends, and you put their email addresses in and you click and that's it. And they're online, and then you have split.
Skype?
No, it's not Skype, it's Gmail.
It's Hangouts,
Yeah.
but it only works when there's no bugs.
Patty Smith?
Would it be possible for somebody amongst you to put together a really more realistic yearly operating budget and what the deficits are and how much it takes to keep the doors open? So we know
At
what
the
we
build,
need to
would you like it at where we are now or
Well, yeah.
away from there?
Do it from where you are right now. If you need to move later, we'll address that, but right now, work with what you got.
Kind of like a statement of cash flow.
Per
Current
monthly,
statement of cash
a
flow.
monthly deal, per monthly.
I mean,
And
I
or
feel like
value.
we're shooting in the dark. It's like I don't have any idea.
Well, I mean, I
what
think we kind of did answer that. I mean, that any executive director, from what I understand, originally Lou Sitzer, when he first came over to Nctv, when it first opened in April of '04, I have been told he was getting $60,000 a year. Now, at that point in time, we were under the superintendent of schools office, okay? That money's gone away. Paul Minicucci, our last executive director, got $30,000 a year, okay? So if you figure somewhere 20, 30,000 would be an average for an salaried executive director. Then you have to figure out through people like Andy and people like that, what kind of an engineer do we need? I suspect we could save a lot of money on an engineer.
Isn't it possible for this restructuring to get somebody to volunteer for both of those positions for a year till we get on our feet?
I've offered
Anything's
Lou
worth
that
asking.
multiple times.
Yeah, see, he could be the engineer, I'll be the technical.
I think he could be an executive officer for $60,000. Absolutely.
But you asked the question,
all
let's
his
hold it for a
technology and
second.
it's got it.
Hang on just a second,
I will volunteer to put those numbers together. If there was anybody here who has access to the data, who will give me the numbers.
Sure, well, I'll give you what I had tonight.
I can
Bravo.
do that for you. I'll send you what I
Okay,
have.
good.
And there's a board meeting, it's open the 12th, this coming Thursday. So
They don't want us
anyone
there.
who has great ideas should
It's a
show
public
up.
meeting.
Should be there. I believe it's
6
6
o'clock.
o'clock.
When is this?
Next Thursday?
Thursday, this Thursday.
Is it this Thursday?
Or what day is it?
No.
It's Friday,
Yeah,
so
don't
it's
even
next
tempt
Thursday,
me.
sorry,
Don't even.
September 11th. Oh,
That's a Wednesday.
Well, you're right, it's the 12th, September 12th.
Thursday.
Where is this meeting?
At Nctv, at the current, right when you walk in the doors, the boardroom is right on the left.
400 Providence Line Road, building
I would like to get
M3.
your email and your email before I leave, if that's possible.
What time is that gonna be?
6 o'clock.
And you know what, you guys, I think almost all of you here,
12.
I have emails for, and everybody signed in tonight hopefully and gave your email addresses, so we'll be sure that we send that out to everybody. Also, it should be on the current website for NCTV, which is Nevada County TV, you might want to write that up there, nevadacountytv.org, and that address, day, and time of that meeting will be on there.
And there's a Facebook page.
What's SUS stand for?
SOS.
Oh, that's-
Save our station.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's also a Facebook page, Save NCTV on Facebook. So if you haven't gone there, check it out, like it.
I think the thing to do is to let the current board die, get rid of the current 501c3, get out of the lease,
Replace it.
find another 501c3 to work under, set up the cloud operation, let Randy and Andy have it, and keep the funding coming in from our entities like that. And then exist like that until we can get our feet under us and do something good.
We just wasted a year with it. I mean, these are going forward.
Everything is going to the web. I mean,
You know, actually, you're right.
the technology is changing.
6 months ago.
Digital television
Yeah, thanks
is
a
really
lot,
not going to be.
Giving us the warning.
Okay, has everybody been heard? Because we can kind
They're
of mingle
watchdogs.
around
Who's
and
watching
talk
over
among
the
ourselves
board?
as we break up
Nobody
tonight.
that missed.
But has
They don't
anybody
need each other.
not been heard that needs to say something?
Communications.
Hey, we're done. Thank you for coming. Thank you.